We know electric car ranges aren't brilliant when it's cold.
But they are great when it's warm.
But what about when it's hot? Really hot.
In this video, we are in the south of Spain, in one of the hottest areas in the whole of Europe. And we're here in the height of summer.
We've got 3 electric cars and we are going to be seeing what impact extremely high temperatures have on their ranges. And we're also going to see what impact it has on charging them up. But before we start our testing and reveal our results, if you want to see lots more videos like this, make sure you subscribe to our channel. So, we've done real-world tests with electric cars in winter that have shown that cold temperatures can impact the official ranges that they offer by as much as 40%.
That is correct.
And then we've also done summer range tests as well. We found that cars get closer to their official ranges when it's warmer.
We have, but so far, all of our testing has been done in the UK because, of course, we're a UK publication. But we know the planet is warming up. We've already seen temperatures of more than 40 degrees in the UK, and it's likely that over the next few years we'll see more heat waves, more extreme temperatures. And so we want to find out the effect of extremely hot weather on the range of electric cars.
Now, it's generally accepted that between 20 and 25 degrees is the optimum temperature for electric car batteries, right?
That's true. It's going to be a little bit hotter than that tomorrow, though.
Yes, speaking of which, do either of you have the weather forecast for tomorrow?
Well, it's about 8:30 at night and I'm sat here dripping in sweat because it's 39 degrees.
This granite step here is, you could cook an egg on it.
And tomorrow, it's going to be 26 degrees, which is a great temperature for electric cars, but that will be very briefly at 7 AM before we then reach a high probably of around 44 degrees.
Ouch.
So just a little bit warm tomorrow then?
It's not going to be cold, that's for sure.
So what's the plan?
Well, the plan is we're going to charge our electric cars up to 100%, and then we're going to be leaving Seville and doing a route around Andalusia via some of the places that hold the all-time heat records for Spain. We're going to be swapping drivers every 50 kilometres. We'll also be swapping running order to keep things as fair as possible. And of course, we don't want to run out of charge on the public road. So when we hit an indicated battery level of 10%, we're going to head to the nearest charging point, charge our EVs up, and obviously we'll know how many miles we managed, but we'll be able to work out how many miles they could theoretically do if they went from 100% down to 0. And we'll also be taking a look at the effects of extreme heat on how quickly EVs can charge up.
All right, well, let's buy some sun cream. After creaming up, the first job of the day was making sure this test was as fair as possible. To do that, we wanted our EVs to be at their recommended tyre pressures. And, very importantly, we wanted their air conditioning to be keeping us cool inside at 21 degrees. However, we know from previous tests that some cars will tell you they're automatically ensuring a constant temperature of 21 degrees, when, in fact, it is nowhere near as cool as it's claiming it is. So, with a thermometer in hand, we set each car to a true 21 degrees. And with that done, we were ready for a day at the wheel. But what were we actually driving? Let's tell you a bit more about the cars on test.
This is the Tesla Model 3. For a long time now, it has been one of the best-selling EVs in the entire world. And for quite a few years now, this has been our favourite executive car. It was updated about 18 months ago. This latest version is codenamed the Highland, and there are 4 versions to choose from. You can have the entry-level rear-wheel drive. That costs less than £40,000 in the UK. And then there is this long-range rear-wheel drive. This has a larger 75 kilowatt-hour usable capacity battery and, of course, a longer range. There is also an all-wheel drive long range, and then right at the top of the range there is a performance version. And that is all about going quickly in a straight line. It can do 0 to 60, officially at least, in less than 3 seconds. But this long-range rear-wheel drive version has the best range. If you stick with standard 18-inch wheels, which this car has, then it can officially do 436 miles on a charge. And not many EVs can go further than that.
This is the Kia EV3. It's a really good small electric SUV, and just like the Tesla, there's 2 batteries to choose from. This is the long range, which means it's got a 78 kilowatt hour usable capacity battery and an official range in excess of 360 miles.
And this is the Citroen EC3. And yes, you've probably guessed this isn't a straightforward head-to-head test. We've got 3 different electric cars representing different classes and different budgets. This EC3 is among the cheapest new electric cars that you can buy. It gets a 43.7 kilowatt hour battery with an official range of 199 miles. And yes, that is a lot less than the other cars, but then remember, this is not far off half the price.
Hello Doug, how are things in the Tesla?
Pretty good, to be honest. It is very hot outside, about 43 degrees according to the car, but nice and cool in here. And we are around about 175 kilometers into this journey, which is about 110 miles. I'm down to 52% of charge, and the car's saying that I've got about 297 kilometers left, which is 184 miles, and so things are pretty fine in here. But how are you getting on in the Citroen?
It's quite the opposite in the Citroen. So I am on 17% and 41 kilometers.
Right, so you're gonna have to be finding a charger pretty soon then.
I am. There is one in the area, so I really hope that it works.
Do you have a backup at all?
I don't. That is it. I've got sun cream and water, but that's all I've got.
Well, I'm sure you'll be fine. What's the worst that could happen? As it happens, Dan was about to find out.
Oh, right, I have made it. Hopefully this charger works. The screen's not even on, so that's a good start. So it turns out these were fitted a year ago and they've never been switched on, which means we're in a bit of a pickle now. So I'm gonna have to ring the guys, get them to come back, and we need to figure out some sort of a plan.
While Dan had only a few kilometres of range left in his EC3, Will and I had much more in the batteries of the other 2 cars. So we turned around to try and help. Right, let's rescue that Citroen. We managed to find a 50 kilowatt charger, which was only 10 kilometres from where Dan was stranded, so we headed there to establish whether it worked or not. So I can confirm it is still very, very warm, and we've found this emergency backup charger. And if the Citroen can make it here, then everything will be fine. We gave Dan the thumbs up and kept our fingers crossed that he could limp his way over to us. Will!
Oh, they're there.
Oh, that is actually them! That is actually them on the bridge. Look, it's it's made it! Look at this! Well, that was never in doubt, was it? Look at that. Well done, Dan. Right there. It's got some high vis on the back. So Dan, you look a bit warm in there. Have you just had a shower?
I am in a shower of my own making, yes.
Oh my goodness me.
So as a precaution, because we didn't really want to break down on the side of a 2-lane motorway with no hard shoulder,
Yeah.
I stuck that in just in case. I know you shouldn't tow an EV, but that was the last resort. But I'm very, very warm.
You are drenched in sweat.
Yes.
Brilliant.
Well done for making it. Enjoy your evening. We'll see you later.
Can you leave some more water for me? Right, the car is plugged in. It is the first of the 3 to die, so I guess it's just down to the other 2 now.
So Will, that was a bit of an unexpected adventure, wasn't it?
Well, unexpected how we got to the charging point, but I don't think it's a huge surprise that the EC3 died first, is it? Because it's a much cheaper car than these, and the official range is worse.
Yes, that is true, but it could have ended up being more efficient than we might expect. We'll of course be going through all those numbers later, but right now, all of that means it's down to these 2 cars here, the Tesla Model 3 and the Kia EV3. So the question is, how much battery percentage have you got, and what is your predicted range?
Well, according to the car, I have 38% of battery remaining, and that should get me 215 kilometres further down the road, which works out to about 133 miles. How does that compare to your numbers?
Okay, well, I have 45% of my battery remaining, which is more than the Model 3.
Well, so it looks like you're going to win this then.
Well, my predicted range is less than yours, at 196 kilometres, which is around about 122 miles.
Well, it does sound like it's going to be very close in that case. I do think the fact that this car has a full-length glass roof. It's heating the interior up. The air conditioning's having to work extremely hard to keep me or my ambient surroundings at 21 degrees. Is hurting the efficiency. We'll obviously find out more about that later. But yeah, it does seem that the Tesla isn't doing quite as well in this really hot temperature as we might have expected.
Yes, it is still warm outside, of course. The EV3 reckons it's 43 degrees outside.
Well, this Tesla says it's 44 degrees, which is actually the same temperature as Death Valley today.
Whether it's 43 or 44, it is definitely not cold outside. And whatever happens between these two cars, it looks like it's going to be very close indeed.
Doug, the moment has happened. I have hit 10%. I have 58 kilometers remaining according to the car, and that works out to around 36 miles. How are you getting on?
Well, I'm on 11%, so perhaps a victory for the EV3, although my estimated range is quite a bit lower than yours at 42 kilometers, which is around 26 miles.
Okay, that is extremely close, isn't it? And we haven't actually finished yet because we have to get to a charging point, of course. There is a supercharger location very close by that is open to non-Tesla EVs. So do you want to join me there?
Good plan.
We made it to the chargers with around 10% of charge remaining. We plugged in to get all of the data we needed to crunch the numbers.
So luckily our final charging stop was far less dramatic than the Citroens, and now it's time for the numbers and the results. And it was hardly surprising really that the EC3 was the first to drop out.
No. However, it is massively cheaper than the other two, and it also has the shortest official range. What's more, most of our route was motorway, where it's more suited to urban and town driving. That said, a range of 129 miles on the day isn't brilliant, and we figured out it would have been 142 miles had it continued to lose battery at the same rate, which is 28.7% down on its official range. On top of that, it also had the worst efficiency at 2.7 miles per kilowatt hour, if you consider the amount of energy pulled from the grid, including the charging losses.
You also had a pretty stressful journey to the charger, and things didn't really get much better when you plugged in, did they?
No, they didn't. So there was one charger at that second bank, and there was an ID3 charging on that to 100%. So that was a 45-minute wait in 44-degree heat with no aircon whatsoever. So it was quite sweaty. On top of that, it took an hour and 14 minutes to charge from 3% to 80%, and then a further 34 minutes to get to the full 100%. It is worth noting, of course, that I was forced to use a 50 kilowatt charging point where the EC3 will do 100 kilowatts. So had we been able to plug into the original chargers, it probably would have been a little bit faster. How did you two get on in the end?
Well, when I plugged in the EV3, it had, by that point, managed 224 miles and averaged 2.9 miles per kilowatt hour. That gives it a theoretical maximum range of 246 miles. Now, that is assuming it were to continue averaging the same efficiency and completely die when it got down to 0%. Overall, that's 32% down on the official range of 362 miles. Now, for charging, it went from 10 to 80% in 34 minutes, and I saw a peak rate of 125 kilowatts, which is not far behind the official numbers of 31 minutes and 130 kilowatts. The full charge from 10 to 100% was 1 hour and 20 minutes. What about the Model 3?
Well, as you know, it has the longest official range of the three cars of 436 miles, but it seemed to suffer more than the EV3 in the extremely hot temperature. It managed the same number of total miles because, of course, we stopped at the same charging point at the end, but with 1% less of its indicated battery remaining, suggesting a maximum range of 244 miles if pushed to its limit in these conditions. And that is 44% down on its official range. Although it was the most efficient of the three, averaging 3 miles per kilowatt hour, again, after you factor in charging losses.
And there are a few other things to consider in all this, aren't there?
There are. So the percentages of remaining range between the EV3 and the Model 3 were rapidly converging. as we got further into the test. So, for example, after about 150 miles, the EV3 was showing 45%, whereas the Model 3 was already down to 38%. Whereas at the end, there was just 1% between them. So it's quite possible that that could have swapped round and the Model 3 might have managed a few miles more. Secondly, based on previous testing in cooler weather, we do know that the Model 3 has a pretty large buffer of more than 10 miles when its indicated battery level is down to 0%. But we haven't tested an EV3, we don't know what the buffer is on that car, so it's impossible to say for sure.
And what about charging up the Model 3?
Well, the Model 3 was definitely the quickest of the three there. It took 32 minutes to go from 9 to 80% at a Tesla V4 charging point. A 10 to 80% top up in ideal conditions can in theory be done in just 27 minutes, but because of the low charge level of the battery that we arrived at, the car wouldn't activate the preconditioning function to get the battery in an ideal condition to charge quickly. The extreme heat may also not have helped, but still we're only talking about 5 minutes between the time that we achieved versus what the car can theoretically do. We briefly saw a peak charging rate of 230 kilowatts. The car can officially do 250 kilowatts. And we waited 1 hour 12 minutes for the full 9 to 100% charge.
So we were never going to pick an overall winner because all three of these cars are in different classes and budgets. Your two had much longer ranges at the end of the day and were more efficient, but the EC3 was the closest to its official range. So what conclusions can we take from this test?
Well, all three cars are a long way off their official ranges. Now, we know that electric cars don't achieve their official ranges in real world conditions, but warm conditions are the best for them. It's pretty clear from this test though that electric cars don't like really hot weather. One issue is the fact that it creates a huge temperature differential between the outside temperature and the temperature that you want it to be inside the car. And that's also before you factor in the greenhouse effect. So the huge expanses of glass in the car, particularly in a Model 3, which has got the full length glass sunroof, allows the sun in, but then traps the heat inside and that radiates off the interior surfaces. So basically the air conditioning has to work extremely hard to counter this, and that uses up energy that could otherwise be used to drive the car along.
It does. It's also worth noting that a US study from last year found that the auxiliary load on an electric car's battery, that's mainly from the heating and the aircon system, is greater at between 40 and 46 degrees than at -4 to 0, so in freezing temperatures. Modern EVs also have thermal management systems that cool the cells in their battery using either air or water, and that helps prevent increased degradation, but it also uses up energy. Likewise, the same study found that the propulsion load, that's the energy needed to move the car along, is only slightly lower at 40 to 46 degrees than at 6 to 10 degrees, so a typical winter's day in most parts of the UK. Batteries operate most efficiently when the ambient air temperature is somewhere between 20 and 25 degrees. So on plenty of summer days, even in the UK, an EV won't be operating in its optimum temperature window.
Interesting. And then when it comes to charging up as well, in theory, extremely high temperatures like those that we had in Spain should have an adverse effect on charging speeds. But as you've mentioned, in the EV3 and the Model 3, only took a few more minutes to get from 10 to 80%. And as we've seen in our other tests, it's rare to match those official figures regardless of the weather. That said, the EC3 did take significantly longer than we would expect. Even on that 50 kilowatt charging point, it should have got from 10 to 80% in around 48 minutes. And that's potentially because it has a less effective air-cooled battery as opposed to liquid like your twos. But without plugging into a bunch of different charging points, it's impossible for us to say for sure.
So really then, the punchline is that our test shows range and efficiency plummets in extreme heat. Our three cars fell an average of more than 35% short of their official ranges. That isn't too dissimilar to the shortfall that we'd expect in the winter months. In fact, in our last winter range test, which was carried out in temperatures between 10 and 11 degrees, the average shortfall was 30%, albeit that was with a greater mix of low-speed driving and stop-start as well, whereas this was an extreme test that involved mostly motorway driving.
Yes, luckily for now at least, the UK climate is still relatively mild. Temperatures above 37 degrees or below -10 are unlikely unless perhaps you live in the Highlands of Scotland. Plus, as technology improves over the next few years, electric cars will almost certainly be better at managing extremely hot and extremely cold conditions.
So there you have it. Thanks very much for watching this video. If you've got experience of EVs in extreme temperatures, tell us about it in the comments below. If you want to see more videos like this, make sure you subscribe to our channel and go to whatcar.com to find out everything you need to know about every car around.